Griggs Wesley was 34 years old, and on November 18, 2024, at 6:47 p.m., he came home from a 5-day business trip to find his entire life packed into 7 suitcases on the sidewalk in front of his house at 2847 Maple Ridge Drive in Westchester County, New York. Taped to the largest suitcase was a note in his wife's handwriting that read, "You destroyed our marriage. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Rachel." He stood there on that cold November evening, watching his breath form clouds in the air, staring at everything he owned sitting on the curb like trash, waiting for pickup. His hands were shaking as he read the note again and again. The house he'd made mortgage payments on for 6 years, $4,200 every month, a total of $302,400 invested into what he thought was their future, was now locked against him. The porch light was off. The curtains were drawn. His own home had become a fortress designed to keep him out. Griggs made $187,000 a year as a senior software architect at Davidson Technologies. Rachel made $96,000 as a marketing director at Brennan and Associates. Together, they'd built a life worth $1.8 million in combined assets. The house valued at $740,000, investment accounts totaling $380,000, his Tesla Model S, $94,000, her BMW X5, $72,000, and various other properties and accounts. They'd been married for 8 years. They'd never had a major fight. They'd talked about starting a family next year. And now Griggs was homeless, standing on a sidewalk in a $2,800 Tom Ford suit that he'd worn to close a $15 million deal in Chicago, wondering what the hell had just happened to his life. He pulled out his phone and called Rachel. It went straight to voicemail. He called again. Same thing. He called her mother, Patricia Montgomery, who lived in the guest house behind their property, a $180,000 separate structure that Rachel's trust fund had paid for 3 years ago. Patricia had always been cordial to Griggs, if a bit cold. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Griggs," she said, her voice like ice cutting through the phone. "I'm surprised you have the audacity to call." "Patricia, what's going on? Why are my things on the sidewalk? Where's Rachel?" "You know exactly what you've done," she hissed. "Rachel is devastated, absolutely devastated. After everything she's done for you, after her family welcomed you with open arms despite your background, this is how you repay her?" His background. There it was. Patricia had never quite forgiven her daughter for marrying someone whose parents had immigrated from Taiwan with $400 in their pockets and built a small restaurant business from nothing. Never mind that Griggs had earned a master's degree from MIT on a full scholarship. Never mind that he'd worked his way up to a 6-figure salary through pure merit. To Patricia Montgomery, whose family had old money dating back to railroad investments in the 1890s, Griggs would always be the kid from Flushing, Queens, who'd gotten lucky. "Patricia, I honestly don't know what you're talking about. I've been in Chicago since Wednesday. I closed the North Point deal. I was working. What am I supposed to have done?" She laughed, a brittle sound devoid of humor. "The evidence speaks for itself, Griggs. Rachel found the messages, the photos, everything. My daughter deserves so much better than a lying, cheating husband." The line went dead. Griggs stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, trying to process what she'd said. Messages? Photos? He scrolled through his phone, checking his text messages, his email, his social media. Nothing. There was nothing because there was no one. He hadn't cheated on Rachel. He'd never even thought about it. He loved his wife, but someone wanted her to think he had. If you enjoy stories of shocking family secrets and justice against the wealthy and powerful, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new stories here every day, each one more intense than the last one. And tell me where you are watching from. Griggs picked up his suitcases, all of them, making multiple trips to load them into an Uber he'd called, and checked into the Marriott Marquis downtown. The room cost $289 per night, and he had no idea how long he'd be staying. He sat on the edge of the hotel bed at 9:23 p.m. and tried to think clearly. His wife believed he'd cheated on her. She had evidence, messages and photos that he'd never sent because they didn't exist. Someone had manufactured evidence against him. The question was, who and why? He opened his laptop and checked their joint bank accounts. Rachel had cleaned them out. The checking account that had held $47,340 yesterday now showed a balance of $3.27. The savings account with $89,620 was down to zero. She'd moved fast, very fast, almost like she'd been planning this. Griggs called his best friend, James Rodriguez, who worked as a financial analyst at Goldman Sachs and made $220,000 a year. They'd known each other since college. If anyone could help Griggs think through this rationally, it was James. "Griggs, what's wrong?" James answered immediately, hearing the strain in his voice. Griggs told him everything. The suitcases, the note, the phone call with Patricia, the emptied bank accounts. "Jesus Christ," James breathed. Okay, first things first, you need a lawyer, like yesterday. If Rachel's family is involved, they're going to bury you in legal paperwork. The Montgomerys have money and connections. You remember her uncle?" Griggs did. Gerald Montgomery, senior partner at Montgomery, Whitfield and Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in Manhattan. He'd handled their family's legal affairs for 30 years, including Rachel's trust fund, which held approximately $2.4 million from her grandfather's estate. "I'll text you a name," James continued. "Diana Reeves. She's a shark. Handles high-asset divorces. She's expensive, probably $600 per hour, but she's worth it. Call her first thing tomorrow. In the meantime, don't contact Rachel. Don't go to the house. Document everything." That night, Griggs couldn't sleep. He lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 6 months. Had he missed something? Some sign that Rachel was unhappy? Some indication that their marriage was in trouble? They'd seemed fine, better than fine. 2 months ago, on September 20th, they'd celebrated their 8th anniversary at Le Bernardin, a Michelin 3-star restaurant where dinner for two cost $720 before wine. Rachel had been radiant in a navy blue dress from Dongdorf Goodman, $1,450. She'd held his hand across the table and told him she was ready to start trying for a baby. They'd toasted with Dom Perignon, $450 per bottle, to their future, to the family they'd build, to growing old together. What had changed? At 7 a.m. the next morning, November 19th, Griggs called Diana Reeves's office. Her assistant scheduled an emergency consultation for 10 a.m. The retainer fee would be $15,000. Diana Reeves was 52 years old, with sharp gray eyes and an even sharper mind. Her office on the 43rd floor of a building on 6th Avenue in Manhattan looked out over the city, a view that probably cost $30 per square foot in rent alone. She listened to Griggs's story without interruption, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "Do you have access to your devices from the past week?" she asked when he finished. "Laptop, phone, anything that can establish your location and activities?" "Everything. I keep detailed records for work. I have time-stamped emails, meeting notes, location data from my phone. I was in Chicago from November 13th through November 18th. I gave a presentation to North Point's Board of Directors on November 16th at 2 p.m. Central Time. There were 12 witnesses, including their CEO, Thomas Brennan, who approved our $15 million software implementation deal." Diana nodded, making more notes. "Good. We'll need all of that. Now, you mentioned your mother-in-law said something about messages and photos. Do you have any idea what she might be referring to?" "Note, I've checked everything. My phone, my email, my social media accounts. There's nothing." "What about your wife's phone?" Could someone have sent her manufactured evidence from a spoofed account? The thought hadn't occurred to Griggs. You mean someone created fake messages to look like they came from me? It's easier than you'd think. There are apps, programs. If someone had access to your photos, your contact information, they could create very convincing fake conversations, text message screenshots, even manipulated photos. Diana leaned forward. Griggs, I need you to think carefully. Who benefits from your marriage ending? He opened his mouth to say no one, but then stopped. Because that wasn't true, was it? Rachel's trust fund, Griggs said slowly. It's structured so that if she divorces, the money stays entirely hers. But if we stay married and she dies before her mother, I'd have inheritance rights to a portion of it. Patricia has always been very protective of the family money. How much are we talking about? The trust is worth $2.4 million, but there's more. Patricia herself has a personal net worth of around $12 million. Rachel is her only child. If Rachel and I had children, I'd have legal connections to the entire Montgomery fortune through my kids. Diana's eyes gleamed with understanding. So by destroying your marriage before you have children, Patricia eliminates you from the family wealth equation entirely. But would she really frame me for cheating? That seems extreme. Griggs, I've been practicing family law for 26 years. I've seen families do far worse for far less money. If Patricia convinced Rachel you were unfaithful, Rachel would divorce you in a heartbeat. In New York, infidelity can affect the division of marital assets. Patricia could be positioning to not only end your marriage, but also to make sure you walk away with as little as possible. Griggs's phone buzzed. An email from an address he didn't recognize. Legal notice at montgomeryfirm.com. His stomach sank as he opened it. It was from Montgomery, Whitfield and Associates, Gerald Montgomery himself. The email contained a formal notice of divorce proceedings, filed that morning at 8:30 a.m. in Westchester County Court. Rachel was citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. She was seeking full ownership of the house, the majority of their investment accounts, and alimony of $5,000 per month for 5 years, a total of $300,000. They were moving fast, incredibly fast. This wasn't a spontaneous decision driven by emotion. This was a coordinated attack, planned and executed with precision. They filed this morning, Griggs said, showing Diana the email. She read it quickly, her expression hardening. They're trying to catch you off balance. Overwhelming force, immediate action, hoping you'll panic and accept a bad settlement just to make it stop. She looked up at him. But we're not going to do that. We're going to fight back. And we're going to find out exactly how they manufactured this evidence against you. Over the next 3 days, Diana and her team moved like a military operation. They subpoenaed Rachel's phone records, her email accounts, her social media data. They deposed witnesses from Griggs's Chicago strip, collecting sworn statements that placed him 800 miles away from any possible affair. They hired a digital forensics expert, a man named Kevin Pham, who charged $350 per hour and could trace digital fingerprints through layers of internet obfuscation. On November 22nd at 3:15 p.m., Kevin walked into Diana's office with a tablet and a grim expression. I found something, he said. He pulled up a series of screenshots on his tablet. They showed text message conversations, supposedly between Griggs and a woman named Jessica L. The messages were explicit, discussing meeting at hotels, exchanging intimate photos, planning secret rendezvous. The timestamps covered the past 4 months. These are what someone sent to your wife's phone, Kevin explained. They came from an encrypted messaging app called Secure Chat, delivered on November 17th at 11:42 p.m. from an untraceable number. But here's where it gets interesting. Kevin swiped to another screen. I analyzed the metadata on these images. The person who created these fake screenshots made a crucial mistake. They used a photo manipulation program called Pixel Forge Pro, which leaves a distinctive digital signature in the file properties. And look at this. He zoomed in on a section of code. The software was registered to a user account with the email address p.montgomery.legal@gmail.com. Griggs felt his blood run cold. Patricia. It gets better, Kevin continued. I traced the IP address where these files were created. They were made on November 16th between 8 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. from a location at 2847 Maple Ridge Drive, your home address, while you were in Chicago. Diana's smile was sharp as a knife. She created the evidence herself, in your house, using your home computer probably. Griggs, we have her. But Griggs wasn't smiling. A cold rage was building in his chest, spreading through his veins like ice water. Patricia Montgomery had destroyed his marriage, turned his wife against him, emptied his bank accounts, and tried to steal his future, all to protect her precious family fortune from someone she considered beneath her. They had no idea what was coming. Griggs spent the weekend at James's apartment in Brooklyn, a two-bedroom place James paid $3,400 per month for. They sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee while Griggs outlined his plan. Diana wants to take this to trial, Griggs said. Expose Patricia's fraud, sue for damages, the whole legal route. But that could take months, maybe years. And even if we win, Patricia can afford to drag it out. She'll pay $50,000, $100,000 in legal fees without blinking. Meanwhile, I'm burning through my savings. So, what are you thinking? James asked. I'm thinking there's a faster way, a smarter way. Griggs opened his laptop and pulled up a file. Remember how I told you Rachel's trust fund is worth $2.4 million? Yeah. What I didn't mention is how that trust is structured. I've been researching trust law for the past 2 days. Rachel's grandfather set up the trust in 1987, and it has very specific conditions. The money is held by Citibank as trustee, and Rachel receives disbursements according to certain milestones. Age 25, marriage, birth of children, and so on. Okay, James said slowly. So the trust documents include a morality clause. If Rachel or any family member commits fraud, embezzlement, or other financial crimes, the trustee has the authority to freeze disbursements pending investigation. It's meant to protect the trust assets from being used in illegal activities. James's eyes widen. You're going to report Patricia for fraud. Not just report, I'm going to prove it. Kevin documented everything. The fake messages, the metadata, the IP addresses. Patricia Montgomery committed wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Those are federal crimes. I'm going to hand everything over to the FBI and let them investigate. And when they do, Citibank will freeze the trust. All $2.4 million of it. Rachel will lose access to her money, James said. Temporarily, until the investigation is complete. But here's the thing. Patricia did this to prevent me from getting access to the family money, right? She was willing to destroy my marriage for it. So let's see how she reacts when that same money is locked up because of her own actions. Griggs pulled up another document. I also found something else. Patricia has been managing Rachel's finances for years, paying bills, handling investments, acting as her financial advisor. I went through our old bank statements. Over the past 3 years, Patricia has transferred approximately $340,000 from Rachel's accounts into various investments, stocks, bonds, real estate ventures. That's not illegal if Rachel authorized it, James pointed out. But Rachel didn't authorize all of it. I found transfers Rachel doesn't know about. Patricia has power of attorney over some of Rachel's accounts, supposedly for estate planning purposes. She's been using that access to move money around. Some of those investments, they're in Patricia's name, not Rachel's. She's been slowly siphoning money from her own daughter. James let out a low whistle. You can prove this? I have bank statements, transfer records, investment documents. Diana's team has been digging through everything. Patricia has been committing financial elder abuse. Well, not elder, but the legal term is financial exploitation of a family member. It's a felony in New York. So you're not just going after Patricia for framing you, James said. You're going after her for stealing from Rachel. I'm going to expose every dirty secret she has, Griggs said quietly. She wanted to protect her family's reputation and money. I'm going to destroy both. On November 25th, Griggs walked into the federal building in Lower Manhattan at 9 a.m. He'd made an appointment with Special Agent Monica Bradford of the FBI's white-collar crime unit. Diana had come with him, carrying 2 banker's boxes full of evidence. Agent Bradford was 46 years old, with short blonde hair and the alert, focused demeanor of someone who'd built a career on finding needles in financial haystacks. She listened to Griggs's story, examined the evidence Kevin had compiled, and reviewed the financial documents showing Patricia's unauthorized transfers. "This is substantial," she said after 2 hours. "The fake messages alone constitute wire fraud and identity theft. The financial transfers, if your wife didn't authorize these, and if her mother used power of attorney for personal gain, that's exploitation. We'd need to interview Mrs. Wesley to confirm she didn't consent to these transfers." "Rachel won't talk to me," Griggs said. "Her mother has convinced her I'm a cheating scumbag. She won't take my calls." "We don't need you to contact her," Agent Bradford replied. "We can interview her as part of our investigation. In fact, it's better if you don't contact her. I don't want any defense attorney claiming you coerced her testimony." She closed the file folder. "Mr. Wesley, I'm going to open an investigation. We'll need to verify everything you've provided, conduct our own forensic analysis, interview witnesses. This will take time." "How much time?" "Weeks, maybe months. Federal investigations move slowly, but they move thoroughly." "What about the trust fund?" Griggs asked. "If you're investigating fraud related to the Montgomery family assets, will the trustee be notified?" Agent Bradford's expression was carefully neutral. "Standard procedure is to notify all relevant financial institutions when we open an investigation into potential fraud affecting their accounts. Citibank, as the trustee of Mrs. Wesley's trust, would be informed that the trust is potentially connected to an ongoing federal investigation. They would likely freeze any major disbursements until our investigation concludes." Griggs felt a grim satisfaction settle in his chest. How soon would they be notified? "As soon as we officially open the investigation, which would be," she glanced at her computer screen, "today, November 25th, 2024, at 11:47 a.m. 3 days later, on November 28th, Griggs received a phone call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Griggs?" The voice was Rachel's, and she sounded shaken. "Griggs, I need to talk to you." His heart lurched. "Rachel, are you okay? Can we meet, please? There's a Starbucks on Central Avenue near the courthouse. Can you meet me there in an hour?" Griggs looked at Diana, who'd been sitting across from him in her office reviewing deposition transcripts. She nodded. "I'll be there," he said. The Starbucks was busy with the lunch crowd, but Griggs found Rachel sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed, her usually perfect makeup absent. She was wearing a gray sweater he'd bought her last Christmas, and seeing it made his chest ache. "Hi," he said softly, sitting down across from her. "The FBI came to my office," Rachel said without preamble. "Yesterday. They asked me questions about my mother, about our finances, about money transfers I didn't know anything about. Griggs, what's going on?" He took a deep breath. "Rachel, I didn't cheat on you. I was never unfaithful. I need you to know that. The messages were fake, created by your mother using photo manipulation software. I have proof. A digital forensics expert traced them back to our home computer, created while I was in Chicago. Your mother framed me." Rachel's face went pale. No, she wouldn't." "She would. She did." Griggs pulled out his phone and showed her Kevin's report. the screenshots, the metadata analysis. She wanted to end our marriage before we had children, before I could have any legal connection to your family's money. Rachel stared at the evidence, her hands trembling. But why? Why would she do this? Because she never thought I was good enough for you. Because she never wanted someone like me connected to the Montgomery fortune. Griggs's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. And it gets worse, Rachel. Your mother has been stealing from you. He showed her the financial records, the unauthorized transfers, the investments in Patricia's name that should have been in Rachel's, the systematic exploitation of her power of attorney privileges. $340,000 moved over 3 years, a little at a time so Rachel wouldn't notice. Rachel's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, spilling across the table. Neither of them moved to clean it up. She stole from me, Rachel whispered. My own mother stole from me. The FBI is investigating. Your trust fund has been frozen pending the outcome. I'm sorry. I know this is a lot. Sorry? Rachel looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Griggs, I threw you out. I believed her. I didn't even give you a chance to explain. God, I emptied our bank accounts. I filed for divorce. I called you a liar and a cheater, and you were in Chicago working to support us. You didn't know, Griggs said quietly. I should have known. I should have trusted you. We've been together for 8 years, and I threw all of that away because my mother showed me some messages. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I'm so sorry. Griggs, I'm so sorry. Griggs reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time they'd touched in 11 days, and it felt like coming home. We can fix this, he said. But Rachel, you need to understand something. I'm not dropping the investigation. Your mother committed crimes, federal crimes. She tried to destroy our marriage. She stole from you, and she needs to face consequences. Rachel nodded, wiping her eyes. I know, I need to talk to her. I need to hear her admit it. Don't do that alone, Griggs warned. Diana can arrange for... I need to do this, Rachel interrupted. She's my mother. However this ends, I need to face her myself. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you have not, because the ending of this story will blow your mind. And drop a comment below telling me what you think Griggs should do next. Rachel drove to her mother's house, technically the guest house behind what had been Rachel and Griggs's home, on November 29th at 2 p.m. Griggs waited in the car parked down the street, his phone on and connected to Rachel's phone in her pocket. Diana had insisted they record the conversation. In New York, only one party needed to consent to a recording, and Rachel had agreed. Patricia answered the door in a cream-colored cashmere cardigan that probably cost $800, her silver hair perfectly styled. Rachel, darling, I wasn't expecting you at this hour. Shouldn't you be at work? We need to talk, Mother. Rachel's voice was cold in a way Griggs had never heard before. Inside, now. Patricia's smile faltered. Of course. Is everything all right? They moved into the guest house living room, a tastefully decorated space with furniture from Restoration Hardware and art from local galleries. Patricia had spent approximately $65,000 furnishing the space when she'd moved in 3 years ago, all paid for by Rachel's trust fund. The FBI came to see me yesterday, Rachel said, not sitting down. They asked about you, about financial transfers, about fraud. Patricia's face went very still. The FBI? Darling, that must be some mistake. What on earth would the FBI want with... Don't! Rachel's voice cracked like a whip. Don't lie to me, not anymore. I know what you did, Mother. I know about the fake messages you created to make me think Griggs was cheating. I know about the money you've been stealing from my accounts. I know everything. For a long moment, Patricia said nothing. Then she sighed and sat down on the sofa, her composure sliding back into place like a mask. You don't understand the full picture, Rachel. Then explain it to me. Explain why you destroyed my marriage. Explain why you stole $340,000 from me. I didn't steal anything, Patricia said sharply. That money was invested on your behalf. The returns have been excellent. I've grown your portfolio by 18% over the past 3 years. I was managing your assets. Without my knowledge, without my permission. Rachel pulled out her phone and showed her mother the financial documents Griggs had compiled. These investments are in your name, Mother, not mine. You transferred my money into accounts I can't access. Patricia's jaw tightened. Those are trust structures, complex financial instruments that require sophisticated management. You don't understand wealth preservation, Rachel. You never have. Your grandfather built this family's fortune through careful stewardship, and I've been protecting it. Protecting it from who? From Griggs? Yes. Patricia stood up, her composure finally cracking. From that immigrant son who saw you as a meal ticket. Do you think he married you for love, Rachel? A man from his background, suddenly elevated into our world? He saw the Montgomery name, the trust fund, the lifestyle, and he locked you down before you could see through him. Griggs has never asked me for a penny, Rachel shot back. He makes more money than I do. He paid for half our house. He's never touched my trust fund. Because he was playing the long game, Patricia's voice rose. Waiting until you had children, until he was legally entitled to family assets through them. Don't you see? Men like him, they marry up, they wait, they position themselves. I've seen it a dozen times in our social circle. Gold diggers with good jobs and charming smiles. So you decided to frame him for adultery? You created fake evidence to destroy my marriage? Patricia's silence was answer enough. How could you? Rachel's voice broke. I loved him. I love him. We were happy, Mother. We were trying to start a family. And you took all of that away from me because you thought he wasn't good enough? I was protecting you. You were protecting the money, Rachel screamed. You've always cared more about the Montgomery fortune than you've cared about me. More than you cared about my happiness, my marriage, my future. You stole from me, Mother. You committed crimes. The FBI is investigating you. My trust fund is frozen. Our family's reputation is going to be destroyed. And for what? To keep Griggs away from money he never wanted in the first place? Patricia's face had gone white. The trust is frozen? As of 3 days ago, Citibank received notice that the Montgomery family assets are under federal investigation for fraud. I can't access any of it until the investigation concludes, which could take months or years. This is Griggs's doing, Patricia said, her voice venomous. He's punishing us. He's using the FBI to... He's exposing what you did, Rachel interrupted. You framed him. You stole from me. He documented everything and handed it over to law enforcement. What did you think would happen, Mother? That he would just accept being kicked out of his own house? That he'd let you destroy his reputation and walk away? Patricia sank back onto the sofa, her hand pressed to her chest. Your uncle can fix this. Gerald has connections. We can make this go away. Uncle Gerald is going to have to recuse himself. He can't represent you when the fraud involves his own firm's management of the family trust. You're on your own, Mother. The weight of those words hung in the air. I need you to leave, Patricia finally said. Get out of my house. Your house? Rachel's laugh was bitter. This is my property, Mother. The guest house is on my land. I've been paying the utilities, the maintenance, everything. You've been living here rent-free for 3 years. She pulled out a folded document from her purse. This is a formal notice to vacate. You have 60 days to find somewhere else to live. Patricia stared at the document like it was a snake. You're evicting me? I'm your mother. You're a criminal, Rachel said quietly, and I can't have you living on my property while the FBI investigates you. I'm sorry, Mother, but you did this to yourself. Rachel turned and walked out, leaving Patricia sitting alone in the guest house, surrounded by furniture bought with stolen money. Griggs was waiting at the car when Rachel emerged. She was crying, her whole body shaking with suppressed sobs. He held her while she broke down, standing on the sidewalk of the street they'd once called home together. "I had to do it," she gasped between sobs. "I had to face her. But Griggs, she's my mother. She's all I have left of my family." "I know," he murmured, stroking her hair. "I know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." They stood there for a long time, holding each other while the November wind picked up around them. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Diana filed motions to dismiss Rachel's divorce petition based on the fraudulent evidence that had prompted it. The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Henderson, who'd been on the bench for 22 years, reviewed the digital forensics report and immediately suspended all proceedings pending the FBI's investigation. "Mrs. Wesley," Judge Henderson said at the December 10th hearing, "are you withdrawing your petition for divorce?" Rachel stood up, her hand clasped in Griggs's. "Yes, Your Honor. The grounds for the petition were based on false evidence created by my mother. My husband never committed adultery. I want to withdraw the petition and I want to apologize to the court for wasting its time." "The court appreciates your honesty, Mrs. Wesley. Petition dismissed." Judge Henderson looked at Patricia, who sat in the back of the courtroom with her newly hired attorney, a man from a mid-tier firm who charged $400 per hour, significantly less prestigious than Uncle Gerald's operation. "Mrs. Montgomery, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. Creating false evidence to interfere with a marriage may constitute fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. You should consult with your attorney." Patricia's face remained frozen, but Griggs saw her hands trembling in her lap. Meanwhile, the FBI's investigation was expanding. Agent Bradford had interviewed employees at Citibank who managed the Montgomery Trust. They discovered additional irregularities. Patricia had made several large transfers in 2022, moving $180,000 from the trust into a vacation property in the Hamptons that was titled in her name alone. She justified it to the bank as family estate planning, but the trust documents didn't authorize such transfers. Agent Bradford had also subpoenaed records from Montgomery, Whitfield, and Associates, looking into Uncle Gerald's role. Had he known about Patricia's financial manipulation? Had he advised her on how to structure the transfers to avoid detection? The law firm was cooperating, barely, but Gerald Montgomery had hired his own criminal defense attorney, a shark named Robert Kellerman, who charged $800 per hour and specialized in white-collar crime. The Montgomery family's carefully constructed facade of old money respectability was crumbling, piece by piece. On December 18th, Griggs and Rachel met with a marriage counselor. Dr. Sarah Winters charged $250 per session and specialized in couples recovering from betrayal and family trauma. They sat in her comfortable office in White Plains, on opposite ends of a plush sofa, and tried to figure out if their marriage could be saved. "Rachel," Dr. Winters said gently, "you mentioned feeling tremendous guilt about not believing Griggs. Can you talk about that?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I should have known. I should have questioned the evidence. Griggs has never given me any reason not to trust him. And I believe my mother over my husband. What kind of wife does that?" "A wife who trusted her mother," Griggs said quietly. "Rachel, I don't blame you. Your mother is sophisticated. She created convincing evidence. She manipulated you." "But I let her," Rachel insisted. "I wanted to believe I was making my own decisions, but I was just doing what my mother wanted, like I always have. She's controlled my life for 33 years, and I never saw it." Dr. Winters leaned forward. "Rachel, recognizing patterns of manipulation is the first step toward breaking them. Your mother used your trust against you. That's not your fault. But moving forward, you'll need to establish boundaries that protect your marriage." "I've already started," Rachel said. "I filed the eviction notice. I've cut off her access to all my financial accounts. I've told Uncle Gerald I won't speak with him until the FBI investigation concludes. But Griggs, she turned to him, I emptied our bank accounts. I filed for divorce. I turned you out of our home. How can you forgive me for that? Griggs took her hand. Because I know who was really behind it. And because I love you, Rachel. I never stopped loving you, even when you thought I'd betrayed you. I love you too, she whispered. I'm so sorry. They were both crying now, holding each other while Dr. Winters watched with professional compassion. Rebuilding trust takes time, Dr. Winters said. Griggs, you've been wronged. Your anger is justified. But if you choose to stay in this marriage, you'll need to process that anger without weaponizing it against Rachel. I'm not angry at Rachel, Griggs said. I'm angry at Patricia. Furious, actually. She tried to destroy my life, and I want her to pay for it. That's fair, Dr. Winters acknowledged. But make sure your quest for justice doesn't consume you. Revenge can be corrosive, even when it's justified. Griggs nodded slowly. I'm not trying to get revenge. I'm trying to get justice. There's a difference. On January 3, 2025, the FBI completed its investigation. Angel Bradford called Griggs and Diana into her office to review the findings. We've substantiated all of your allegations, she said, sliding a thick report across the desk. Mrs. Patricia Montgomery created fraudulent evidence using photo manipulation software with the intent to interfere with your marriage. That constitutes wire fraud and identity theft. She also misappropriated approximately $340,000 from her daughter's accounts without authorization, which qualifies as financial exploitation. The vacation property in the Hamptons was purchased with trust funds that she wasn't entitled to use. What happens now? Griggs asked. The U.S. Attorney's Office will decide whether to bring federal charges. Given the amount of money involved and the sophistication of the fraud, I expect they will. Mrs. Montgomery is looking at potential prison time, probably 5 to 7 years if convicted, though she might negotiate a plea deal for less. And the trust fund? Rachel asked. She'd come to the meeting with Griggs, sitting beside him with her fingers intertwined. Citibank will unfreeze the trust once our investigation officially closes, which should be within the next 2 weeks. However, they're implementing new oversight procedures. Your mother will be removed as a signatory on all accounts, and they're requiring annual audits of the trust management. Good, Rachel said firmly. There's one more thing, Agent Bradford added. Your uncle, Gerald Montgomery. We found evidence that he advised your mother on how to structure some of the transfers to minimize scrutiny. He didn't participate in the fraud directly, but he failed to report suspicious activity that he should have recognized as his duty as the family attorney. The New York State Bar Association has been notified. He's likely facing disciplinary proceedings. Griggs felt a dark satisfaction at that news. Gerald Montgomery, with his expensive suits and his condescending attitude, was going to lose his license. The family's precious law firm would be tainted by scandal. They had no idea it would get even worse. On January 14, 2025, Patricia Montgomery was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of wire fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. The indictment was public record, and within hours, the New York Post had picked up the story. Old money, new crimes. Montgomery family matriarch indicted for elaborate fraud scheme. The article detailed Patricia's decades of social prominence, her family's railroad fortune, her daughter's marriage to a self-made tech executive, and the alleged fraud that had destroyed that marriage. It included Patricia's booking photo. She turned herself in at the federal courthouse rather than be arrested, and she looked every one of her 67 years, her perfectly styled hair now disheveled, her face pale and drawn. The story went viral. Other news outlets picked it up. The Daily Mail ran with it. American aristocrat accused of framing son-in-law. Even the New York Times covered it, though more soberly. Federal fraud case highlights risks of family financial management. Patricia's friends from the country club, her social circle, her charity board positions. All of it evaporated overnight. The Manhattan elite might tolerate many things, but public criminal indictment wasn't one of them. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Griggs's situation. On January 20th, Uncle Gerald was suspended from practicing law, pending a full investigation by the state bar. Montgomery, Whitfield and Associates issued a terse press release stating that Mr. Montgomery had been placed on indefinite administrative leave and that the firm was cooperating fully with all authorities. Reading between the lines, Griggs knew they were preparing to throw Gerald under the bus to protect the firm's reputation. Rachel had moved back into the house on Maple Ridge Drive. Griggs had never changed the locks. Technically, it was still their shared property. And one evening in mid-December, she'd simply shown up with her suitcases and asked if she could come home. "It's your home too," Griggs had said, and she'd burst into tears. They slept in separate bedrooms at first, giving each other space. Then gradually, Rachel started staying in their old room again, and Griggs would join her, and they'd lie awake talking for hours about everything that had happened, about trust and betrayal, about family and loyalty, about whether they could rebuild what Patricia had tried to destroy. On January 28, 2025, they met with Diana to discuss the financial settlement of their marital assets. Not as adversaries, but as partners trying to untangle the mess Patricia had created. "The joint accounts that Rachel emptied," Diana said, reviewing her notes, "that's $136,960 that was transferred out. Rachel, are you prepared to restore that?" "Half of it was mine anyway," Rachel pointed out. "But yes, I'll transfer Griggs's share back. $68,480. Plus interest if that matters." "I don't want interest," Griggs said. "Just the principal is fine." Diana made a note. "The house is currently titled in both your names, with equity of approximately $290,000 after the mortgage. You can maintain joint ownership, or one of you could buy out the other." "I want to keep the house," Rachel said, looking at Griggs. "We picked it out together. We renovated the kitchen together. This is our home. I don't want to lose it." "Neither do I," Griggs agreed. "The Tesla and BMW are titled separately, so those stay with whoever's name is on the title," Diana continued. "Investment accounts. You'll need to update the beneficiary information and access controls, but those can remain joint if you're staying married." "We're staying married," Rachel said firmly, reaching for Griggs's hand. Diana smiled. "Good, then this is straightforward. We'll file amended paperwork with the court reflecting the withdrawal of divorce proceedings, restore joint account access, and put everything back the way it was." "Not quite the way it was," Griggs said quietly. "We're different now. We've been through something that changed us. But we're together," Rachel added. "That's what matters." On February 7th, 2025, Patricia Montgomery appeared in federal court for her arraignment. Her attorney, a competent but uninspired lawyer named Donald Frazier, entered a plea of not guilty on all counts. The judge set bail at $500,000, which Patricia posted using the Hamptons property as collateral, the same property she'd bought with stolen trust money. Griggs and Rachel sat in the courtroom gallery, watching Patricia stand before the judge. She looked diminished somehow, no longer the imperious matriarch who'd ruled their lives for years. She was just a 67-year-old woman facing federal prison for crimes she'd committed to protect money that had never been threatened in the first place. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Patricia's expression was a mixture of hatred and desperation. Griggs held her gaze steadily, feeling no satisfaction, no triumph, just a hollow sadness that it had come to this. After the hearing, as they walked out of the courthouse, Rachel said, "She's going to prison, isn't she?" "Probably," Griggs replied. "Even with a plea deal, she's looking at years behind bars." "I should feel something," Rachel said. "Anger, satisfaction, something. But I just feel empty." Griggs stopped walking and turned to face her. She's your mother. It's okay to grieve for who you thought she was, even while holding her accountable for who she really is. Rachel leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her. They stood there on the courthouse steps, holding each other while the February wind whipped around them, just as they had 2 months earlier on the sidewalk of their home. But this time, they were facing forward together. The trial was scheduled for April 2025, but everyone knew it wouldn't actually go to trial. Patricia's attorney, Donald Frazier, had been negotiating with the U.S. Attorney's Office for weeks, trying to work out a plea deal that would minimize his client's prison time. They're offering 6 years, Diana told Griggs and Rachel in a meeting on March 12th. She'd plead guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of financial exploitation. The identity theft charges would be dropped. With good behavior, she'd probably serve 4 to 5 years. That seems light, Griggs said. It's actually fairly standard for a first-time white-collar offender, Diana explained. The federal sentencing guidelines factor in the amount of money involved, the sophistication of the fraud, and the defendant's criminal history. Patricia has no priors, and she's cooperating with the prosecution's case against Gerald. Uncle Gerald's going to be charged too? Rachel asked. The Bar Association investigation found substantial evidence that he knowingly facilitated Patricia's financial exploitation. He's facing his own federal charges for conspiracy and obstruction. He's probably looking at 3 to 4 years. Rachel closed her eyes. My whole family is going to prison. You still have me, Griggs said softly, squeezing her hand. I know, she whispered. You're the only family I have left. On March 28th, Patricia accepted the plea deal. In a formal hearing, she stood before Judge Andrew Morrison in the Southern District of New York and intimidated, in a voice barely above a whisper, that she had committed wire fraud and financial exploitation against her own daughter. Mrs. Montgomery, Judge Morrison said, his voice stern, you manipulated your daughter's marriage, created false evidence to frame your son-in-law, and stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from your child. These are not crimes of passion or desperation. These are calculated, sophisticated crimes committed for pure greed. Do you understand the severity of what you've done? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia said. Sentencing is set for May 15th. Until then, you'll remain free on bail with electronic monitoring. He banged his gavel. This court is adjourned. Griggs and Rachel didn't attend that hearing. They'd agreed that watching Patricia's public humiliation wouldn't bring them peace or closure. They were done focusing on her. It was time to rebuild their own lives. In March and April, they threw themselves into marriage counseling with Dr. Winters. They attended sessions twice a week, working through the trauma of betrayal, the guilt Rachel carried, the anger Griggs struggled to release. I keep thinking about what she said, Rachel admitted during one session in mid-April. About Griggs being a gold digger, marrying me for money. What if she was right? Not about Griggs, she added quickly, seeing his wounded expression, but about me. What if the only thing I had to offer was money, my trust fund, my family name? That's your mother's voice in your head, Dr. Winters said. She spent your entire life making you believe your worth was tied to the Montgomery fortune. But Griggs, what made you fall in love with Rachel? Griggs thought back to their early days when they'd met at a tech industry conference in 2015. Rachel had been there representing her marketing firm, pitching to potential clients. He'd been a junior architect at Davidson Technologies, attending panels and networking. You made me laugh, he said, looking at Rachel. You were presenting to this room full of stuffy executives, and you made a joke about millennial marketing trends that was actually funny. After your presentation, I came up to tell you how great it was, and we ended up talking for 3 hours. We got coffee, then dinner, then coffee again the next morning. I didn't even know about your trust fund until months later. I fell in love with you because you were smart, funny, ambitious, and kind. The Montgomery money was just background noise. I was so nervous that first day, Rachel said, smiling through tears. You were so handsome in that navy suit, And when you came up to talk to me, I thought I was going to pass out. I went home and told my roommate I'd met the man I was going to marry." "Did you really?" Griggs asked, surprised. "I really did. She thought I was crazy. We'd talked for 3 hours, and I already knew." Rachel wiped her eyes. "My mother tried to take that away from us. She tried to make me believe our love was transactional. But it never was, Griggs. It never was." They held each other while Dr. Winters smiled quietly, letting the moment breathe. On May 1st, Griggs received a call from Kevin Pham, the digital forensics expert who'd uncovered Patricia's fraud. "I found something else," Kevin said. "I've been doing additional analysis of Patricia's devices for the FBI, and I discovered deleted files from her laptop. Text messages between her and Gerald Montgomery, planning the whole thing." "Planning what?" Griggs asked. "The frame job. They coordinated it. Gerald advised her on how to create the fake messages, when to send them to Rachel, how to time the divorce filing for maximum impact. They wanted to catch you completely off guard, force you into a bad settlement before you could mount a defense." Griggs felt his jaw clench. "So Gerald was in on it from the beginning." "Completely. He's more culpable than the original charges indicated. I've sent everything to Agent Bradford. Gerald's attorney is going to have a bad day when this comes out." Indeed, on May 6th, Gerald Montgomery was hit with additional charges: conspiracy to commit wire fraud and obstruction of justice. His plea deal negotiations collapsed. He was now facing 8 to 10 years in federal prison. The law firm of Montgomery, Whitfield and Associates announced on May 8th that it was dissolving. After 127 years of continuous operation, serving Manhattan's elite families through 5 generations, the firm was shutting down. The other partners couldn't recover from the scandal. Clients were fleeing. The Montgomery name, once synonymous with prestige and discretion, was now toxic. Rachel cried when she read the announcement. Not for Gerald, who'd betrayed her as thoroughly as her mother had, but for the loss of family history. The firm had been founded by her great-great-grandfather in 1898. It had survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, multiple recessions, but it couldn't survive Gerald's greed and Patricia's manipulations. "It's the end of an era," she said to Griggs, as they sat in their living room, reading the news on his laptop. "No," Griggs said gently. "It's the end of their era. You and I are building something new, something better." On May 15th, Patricia Montgomery was sentenced to 72 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. She was also ordered to pay $340,000 in restitution to Rachel, plus an additional $50,000 in fines. Griggs and Rachel attended the sentencing hearing this time. They needed to see it through to the end. Patricia stood before Judge Morrison, her attorney beside her, as the sentence was pronounced. She was wearing a simple gray dress, no more $800 cashmere cardigans, and she looked older than her 67 years. Defeated. "Mrs. Montgomery," Judge Morrison said, "I've reviewed the arguments for leniency. Your attorney emphasizes your age, your lack of criminal history, your contributions to charitable organizations. But I've also reviewed the evidence of your crimes, and I'm struck by the cruelty of your actions. You didn't just commit financial fraud. You weaponized a mother's love against her own daughter. You manufactured evidence to destroy a marriage. You were willing to sacrifice your daughter's happiness to protect money that was never at risk in the first place." Patricia's shoulders shook. She was crying silently. "You'll serve your time at FCI Danbury," the judge continued. "Report date is June 1st, 2025. Do you understand the sentence?" "Yes, Your Honor," Patricia whispered. As the bailiff led her out of the courtroom, Patricia looked back at Rachel. Their eyes met. Griggs saw Rachel's hand tremble, saw her instinct to reach out, to comfort. But she stayed still. After a moment, Patricia looked away and walked through the door that led to the holding cells. "Are you okay?" Griggs asked quietly. "I will be," Rachel said. "Eventually." In the hallway outside the courtroom, they ran into Agent Bradford. "Mrs. Wesley, Mr. Wesley," she said, shaking their hands. "I wanted to personally thank you for your cooperation throughout this investigation. Without your documentation and willingness to come forward, Mrs. Montgomery might never have faced justice." "Thank you for believing me," Griggs said. "When I first came to you with this story, I wasn't sure anyone would take it seriously." "White-collar crime often depends on victims willing to speak up," Agent Bradford replied. "Too many people stay silent out of shame or family loyalty. You did the right thing." After she left, Rachel turned to Griggs. "Did we do the right thing? She's my mother. She's going to prison for 6 years. She'll be 73 when she gets out." "She committed crimes," Griggs said. "She hurt you. She tried to destroy us. Actions have consequences, Rachel. That's justice, not revenge." "I know," Rachel said. I keep wondering if there was another way." "There wasn't. Not without letting her get away with it. And if we'd done that, she would have just kept controlling your life, kept manipulating you, kept treating me like I was beneath your family. This was the only way to be free." Rachel nodded slowly. "You're right. I know you're right. It just hurts." "It's supposed to hurt," Griggs said. "She's your mother. You're allowed to love her and hold her accountable at the same time. Those things don't contradict each other." They walked out of the courthouse into bright May sunshine. Spring in New York was beautiful, the trees blooming, the air warm and sweet. "What do you want to do now?" Rachel asked. "I want to take my wife to lunch," Griggs said. "Somewhere nice, maybe that Italian place on Columbus Avenue you love." "Osteria Marini?" Rachel smiled. "That sounds perfect." They had lunch at Osteria Marini, where they'd had their first date almost 10 years earlier. They ordered the same dishes they'd shared that first time, the pasta al limone, $28, and the branzino, $42, and talked about everything except Patricia, Gerald, and the trial. They talked about Rachel's job, where she'd just been promoted to VP of Marketing with a salary increase to $128,000. They talked about Griggs's latest project at Davidson Technologies, a $22 million AI implementation for a healthcare company. They talked about traveling to Taiwan to visit Griggs's parents, who'd been supportive throughout the entire ordeal and had sent Rachel care packages filled with homemade dumplings and encouraging notes. "Your parents are so kind to me," Rachel said. "After everything my family did to their son, they still treat me like family." "You are family," Griggs said. "You're their daughter-in-law. They never blamed you for Patricia's actions." "I want to spend more time with them," Rachel said. "I realize going through all of this that I've been letting my mother's prejudices affect how I saw your family. She made these subtle comments about immigrants, about working-class backgrounds, and I absorbed that without even realizing it. Your parents built a successful restaurant business from nothing. They put 3 kids through college. They should be celebrated, not looked down on." "They'd love to hear you say that," Griggs said. "Then I'll tell them, in person. Let's plan a trip to Flushing this weekend. I want to have dinner at their restaurant, meet their friends, be part of your world the way I should have been all along." Griggs reached across the table and took her hand. "I love you, Rachel Wesley." "I love you too," she said. "And Griggs, I want to start trying for a baby, if you still want to." His heart swelled. "Really? Really? We've wasted so much time these past few months. We're both in our mid-30s. If we want to have kids, we should start now. I don't want to let my mother's actions steal any more of our future." "Yes," Griggs said, grinning. "Yes, let's do it. Let's start our family." They finished lunch and walked through Central Park, holding hands, making plans. They'd convert the guest bedroom into a nursery. They'd need to buy a crib, probably something from Pottery Barn, $800, $1,200 range. They'd have to research pediatricians, daycare options, parenting classes. "We're really doing this," Rachel said, sounding amazed. "We're really doing this," Griggs confirmed. In June, Patricia reported to FCI Danbury to begin her sentence. Rachel didn't visit her. She wasn't ready. Maybe someday she would be, but not yet. The wound was too fresh. The betrayal too deep. Gerald Montgomery was sentenced on June 20th to 96 months in federal prison, 8 years, for his role in the conspiracy. He showed no remorse at his sentencing hearing, instead blaming Griggs for weaponizing the legal system against a respected family. Judge Morrison was not impressed. "Mr. Montgomery," the judge said icily, "you were an officer of the court, an attorney with decades of experience. You knew exactly what you were doing when you helped your sister-in-law commit fraud. You betrayed your professional obligations, your ethical duties, and your own niece. You deserve every day of the sentence I'm imposing." The New York State Bar Association disbarred Gerald permanently. His legal career, built over 43 years, was over. In July, Griggs and Rachel went to Dr. Winters for what they both knew would be their last counseling session. "You two have done remarkable work," Dr. Winters said. "When you first came to me, your marriage was hanging by a thread. Now look at you." "We still have hard days," Rachel admitted. "Sometimes I wake up and the guilt hits me all over again. Everything I put Griggs through. And sometimes I wake up angry," Griggs added, "thinking about what Patricia did, how close we came to losing everything." "That's normal," Dr. Winters said. "Trauma doesn't disappear overnight. But you've built tools to process those feelings together. You communicate honestly. You support each other. You've created a foundation strong enough to weather this storm and whatever comes next." "We want to try for a baby," Rachel said. "Is that a good idea, given everything we've been through?" "Do you want a baby?" Dr. Winters asked. "Yes," they said together. "Then it's a good idea. Healing doesn't mean waiting until everything is perfect. It means moving forward with intention and commitment. You two have that." They left Dr. Winters' office holding hands, feeling lighter than they had in months. In August, Rachel discovered she was pregnant. She took 3 different tests to be sure, then set up a surprise for Griggs. She made dinner, chicken parmesan, his favorite, and set the table with their good china. When he came home from work, she was waiting with a small gift box. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "It's not my birthday." "Just open it," Rachel said, barely able to contain her excitement. Inside the box was a tiny pair of baby shoes, size newborn, in soft yellow. Griggs stared at them for a long moment before the realization hit him. "You're pregnant?" he breathed. "I'm pregnant," Rachel confirmed, laughing and crying at the same time. Griggs picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, both of them laughing, tears streaming down their faces. When he set her down, he knelt and pressed his face to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there," he whispered. "We're your parents, and we already love you so much." They called Griggs's parents that night. His mother, Lynn, screamed with joy loud enough that they had to hold the phone away from their ears. His father, David, congratulated them with quiet emotion, saying he was proud of them for staying strong through difficult times. They didn't call Patricia. Rachel had written her mother one letter since she'd gone to prison, explaining that she needed space and time to heal. Patricia had written back, a rambling 8-page letter that alternated between apologies and justifications. Rachel had read it once and then filed it away. Maybe someday she'd read it again. Maybe not. In September, they attended their first prenatal appointment. The ultrasound technician, a cheerful woman named Maria, squeezed gel on Rachel's abdomen and moved the wand around until a fuzzy image appeared on the screen. "There's your baby," Maria said, pointing. "Strong heartbeat, measuring right on track for 8 weeks." Griggs and Rachel stared at the screen, mesmerized by the tiny flutter that was their child's heartbeat. Griggs squeezed Rachel's hands so tightly his knuckles went white. "That's our baby," he said, awestruck. "That's our baby," Rachel agreed. Due date was April 28th, 2026, almost exactly 1 year after Patricia had been sentenced. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. As fall turned to winter, they settled into the rhythm of preparing for parenthood. They painted the nursery a soft sage green. They bought a crib from Pottery Barn, $1,095, and a glider chair from West Elm, $899. They took parenting classes at the local hospital, $250 for a 6-week course. They argued good-naturedly about names. What about Griggs Jr., Griggs suggested. Absolutely not, Rachel said firmly. If it's a boy, I like James, after your best friend. If it's a girl, maybe Elena? Elena Wesley, Griggs tried out. I like it. In December, they found out they were having a girl. Elena Wesley would arrive in spring. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, they hosted dinner at their house for the first time since the previous year's disaster. James and his girlfriend came, along with Griggs's parents and his 2 siblings. It was loud and warm and full of laughter. Lynn fussed over Rachel, making sure she ate enough, bringing special teas that were supposed to be good for pregnancy. David grilled Griggs about his plans for the baby. Had he set up a college fund yet? What about life insurance? Dad, she's not even born yet, Griggs laughed. It's never too early to plan, David said seriously. Parenthood requires preparation. After dinner, Rachel found herself alone in the kitchen with Lynn, doing dishes despite Lynn's insistence that pregnant women shouldn't be on their feet so much. Lynn, Rachel said quietly, thank you for accepting me. After everything my family did to Griggs, you would have every right to hate me. Lynn dried a plate and set it on the counter. Rachel, you are not your mother. You are your own person. And you make my son happy. That's all that matters to a mother. Rachel started crying, overwhelmed by the simple kindness of it. Lynn pulled her into a hug. You're our daughter now, our family, and soon we'll have a granddaughter. You've given us such a gift. In that moment, standing in her kitchen being hugged by her mother-in-law, Rachel realized something profound. Family wasn't about money or prestige or maintaining images. Family was about people who showed up for you, who loved you through mistakes and misunderstandings, who celebrated your joys and supported you through sorrows. She'd lost the family she was born into, but she'd gained something far more valuable, a family built on love and choice and commitment. On New Year's Eve, Griggs and Rachel stood on their back porch, watching fireworks light up the sky over Westchester County. Rachel was 6 months pregnant now, her belly round and prominent. Griggs stood behind her, his arms wrapped around her and their unborn daughter. What are you thinking about? Rachel asked. I'm thinking about how close we came to losing this, Griggs said. How one person's greed almost destroyed everything we built together. But it didn't, Rachel pointed out. We're still here. We're having a baby. We're together. We're together, Griggs echoed. Despite everything Patricia tried to do, we're still together. Griggs, Rachel said, turning in his arms to face him. I need to say something. I've been thinking about this for months, and I need to say it. I forgive my mother. He looked at her in surprise. You do? I forgive her. Not for her sake, but for mine. I can't carry this anger and bitterness into our daughter's life. I don't want Elena to grow up in the shadow of family trauma. So I'm choosing to forgive. I may never have a relationship with my mother again. That trust is broken, maybe permanently, but I can release the anger. Griggs kissed her forehead. You're a better person than I am. I'm not sure I can forgive her. You don't have to, Rachel said. Your anger is valid. She tried to destroy you. But for me, forgiveness is the only way forward. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, Griggs said, and I'm proud of you for getting there. They stood together watching the last of the fireworks fade, feeling their daughter kick and move between them. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and beautiful, and theirs to build together. In February 2026, Rachel wrote a letter to Patricia. She'd been thinking about what Dr. Winters had said about healing and moving forward. She wasn't ready to visit, might never be ready for that, but she could offer this small gesture. The letter was short. Mother, I'm writing to let you know that I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother. Her name will be Elena. I haven't decided yet if I'll bring her to visit you. That depends on a lot of things, including whether you can truly understand what you did to me and Griggs. but I wanted you to know she exists. I've chosen to forgive you, not because you've earned it, but because I need to move forward. Elena deserves parents who aren't consumed by bitterness and family trauma. If you want to be part of her life someday, you'll need to prove that you've changed, that you've learned from your mistakes, that you understand why what you did was so deeply wrong. I hope prison is giving you time to reflect on that. Rachel. She mailed the letter and felt a weight lift from her chest. On April 28, 2026, at 3:42 a.m., Elena Lynn Wesley was born at Westchester Medical Center, weighing 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She had Griggs's dark hair and Rachel's nose and lungs that could wake the entire maternity ward. Griggs held his daughter for the first time and wept. All the anger, all the trauma, all the pain of the past year and a half, none of it mattered in that moment. He had his wife, his daughter, his family. He had everything that mattered. Rachel, exhausted and radiant, watched her husband bond with her baby. "We did it," she whispered. "We made it through." "We did," Griggs agreed, unable to take his eyes off Elena's tiny face. "And we're going to be okay, all three of us." Make sure you like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. 6 months later, in October 2026, Griggs received an unexpected email. It was from Patricia's prison email account. Inmates at FCI Danbury had limited computer access for approved contacts. "Griggs, I know I have no right to write to you. I know I destroyed your life and nearly destroyed your marriage to my daughter. But I need to say this, whether you read it or not. I was wrong. About everything. About you, about your worth, about your intentions. You were never after our money. You loved Rachel truly and completely. I saw that, and it terrified me because it meant I was losing control of my daughter's life. I spent 6 decades believing that money and prestige were what mattered, that protecting the Montgomery fortune was my highest duty. I sacrificed everything for that belief, my relationship with Rachel, my freedom, my reputation. And for what? So that a pile of money could sit in a bank account? I've had a lot of time to think in here, a lot of time to understand what I threw away. I had a beautiful, intelligent, loving daughter, and I pushed her away because I was too proud to accept that she'd chosen her own path. Rachel sent me photos of Elena. She's perfect. She has your eyes. I'm a grandmother, and I'm sitting in a prison cell because of my own actions, unable to hold my granddaughter. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you won, not because you destroyed me, though I destroyed myself, but because you fought for your marriage and your family. You didn't let me win, and I respect that, even as I grieve what I've lost. Take care of my daughter and granddaughter. Be the family I couldn't be." Patricia Griggs read the letter twice, then forwarded it to Rachel without comment. She called him an hour later, crying. "Do you think she means it?" "I think she's had time to see what she lost," Griggs said. "Whether that translates to genuine change, I don't know. That's not for us to figure out right now." "Maybe someday," Rachel said. "When Elena's older, if Patricia has really changed, maybe someday." "Maybe," Griggs agreed, "but not today." Today, Griggs came home from work to find Rachel in the nursery, rocking Elena to sleep while humming softly. He stood in the doorway, watching his wife and daughter, and felt a peace settle over him that he'd never experienced before. This was justice. Not Patricia's imprisonment, though that had been necessary. Not the destruction of the Montgomery name, though that had been inevitable. This quiet moment of his family together, safe and whole and loved, this was justice. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so good, so full of love and purpose, that the people who tried to destroy you simply don't matter anymore. He'd learned that you can't control what other people do to you, but you can control how you respond. You can choose anger and bitterness, or you can choose healing and growth. You can choose to be consumed by the injustice done to you, or you can choose to build something beautiful from the ashes. Griggs and Rachel chose beauty. They chose each other. They chose family, not the one Rachel was born into, but the one they created together. And that choice made all the difference. Elena stirred in Rachel's arms, making small baby noises. Rachel looked up and saw Griggs in the doorway. She smiled, that same smile that had captured his heart almost 11 years ago at a tech conference, and gestured for him to come closer. He crossed the nursery and wrapped his arms around both of them, his wife and his daughter, his family, his future. "I love you," he whispered to Rachel. "I love you too," she whispered back. "Thank you for never giving up on us. Thank you for finding your way back to me." They stood there together, three people who'd been through fire and emerged stronger, watching the October sunset paint the nursery walls gold and amber. Outside, the world continued its complicated spin. But in this room, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Sometimes justice comes through courtrooms and prison sentences. Sometimes it comes through consequence and accountability. But sometimes, the best times, justice comes simply through surviving, through thriving, through refusing to let someone else's darkness extinguish your light. Griggs and Rachel Wesley had survived. They'd thrived. And they'd built a future that no amount of money or manipulation could ever take away from them. That was the deepest justice of all.